All right, let's go. All right. What are you going to talk about this week, Tim?
Well, Cindy Dad, Canada won gold again in the Ivan Hlinka Gretzky tournament over in Czechia, or Czechia, the Czech Republic, whatever they call it now.
And Malcolm Spence got the winner with 7 seconds to go. It must have been exciting. And Mike Misa, he's going to be up there too.
Yeah, they're both from Mississauga.
Both from Mississauga. That's Hazel McCallion. More hockey players come now from Mississauga, not naturally.
Well, she built so many rinks. That was her big thing. You can't go 10 minutes in Mississauga without running into a rink.
But a guy I like is Stan Dickinson. He's going to be, and where is he from?
Oh, just Cindy, London. You wonder how Mark and Dale get these guys. They always are in the semifinals or finals of the OHL, and yet you look and you go, top prospect, London Knights. So.
Yeah, but you used to say when you were out scouting, that you always see a London scout there, or even the Hunter brothers out there.
Yeah. Remember the time we told that story before, Dad? Was after they had won. Mark and Dale were the GM and coach of the World Juniors.
Oh yeah,
and they ended up winning.
First of all, if you have a scout that doesn't know somebody, well, he works hard. That's and if you're talking about him, if you really think he's a good hockey player, well, he works hard. So everybody works hard.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the code. If somebody who asks you about a player, you don't like saying bad things about a player outside your inner circle. You say he works hard. But so in that World Juniors, Dale and Mark, they lost the first game to Russia 6-0, and they looked awful. And then they went and they won the gold medal, right? So that was first time we saw Mark out scouting. And the Icelands in Mississauga, and we go, hey, Mark, congratulations. He goes, yeah. After that first game, headlines, and that was the Hockey News or
the first thing he said,
Star, Mark and Dale, most overrated minds in hockey. You can tell it bugged him.
I wonder if you ever went to reporter afterwards.
I always loved your quote, Dad, about the press. They're either at your feet or your throat.
Oh,
I'll never forget that line.
Yeah, but one thing about that tournament, that Hlinka Gretzky tournament, is that outside of the Olympics, that's the only best on best tournament. Because
True.
Like if the World Juniors, like Owen Power could have played last year, and this year Berard could still be playing, but they're both in the NHL, so it's not best on best. And then the world tournament in
how many times they won it, Tim?
I think 29 times they've won. They've won 3 out of the last 4 times. So,
and these kids are young.
Yeah, like the guy that got the winner, Malcolm Spence. He's still 16, and he's not 17 until September.
And
Cindy, you had.
I was out. I was. A friend of mine comes up to me and says to me, he listens to the podcast. He says, "Hey," he goes, "what's with your dad? Why doesn't he like Denny Potvin?" I go, well, what are you talking about? So anyway, I guess because you said that he was mean, Dad.
I meant that affectionately. Anybody that liked Bobby Schmutz had to like mean hockey players.
A lot of things you say people could be misinterpreted, let's say, right,
Yeah,
Dad?
but that's a term of endearment. Like even when you're scouting, what kind of players? Oh, he's a good player. He's really mean. And you say that you don't say that as a negative. You say that as a positive.
As a business person, people don't understand when you used to say, well, what did you think of him? Well, he's a wise old owl, and people think, well, then you must like that person. No, not necessarily. If you call someone a wise old owl, that means you don't like them, right? We learned that.
That's right, Tim.
Right. The wise old owl means that he's passing judgment or giving advice after the fact.
And
well, it means that
sits in the tree.
Well, it's more like when he's talking to you in a business situation, and he talks really slow so that we dum-dums can understand it, and and with a long hesitant in between. Said he's a wise old owl, and he speaks very slowly so we all can understand it.
Well,
and that is the kiss of death for you, boy. If they do that.
And tell your friend I didn't mean to be mean when talking about Dennis Fatman, because I do like him.
Cindy and Dad, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Spreads.ca. They're a Canadian-owned online casino and sportsbook, and if you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, they'll match your deposit up to $250. You get 10 spins on the big wheel for some big dough, and your first sports bet, they spot you $25, and they've been a big supporter of the Don Cherry Pet Rescue. So
how much did they give you, Cindy?
Close to $20,000.
$20,000. That's
Maybe
pretty
they'll
good.
do it again this year.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they will.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. We can use the money. We pour out a lot of money. There's a lot of great rescues out there that we'd like to support, but it's all about the dollars.
Kind of tough now, hey, Cindy?
Oh, geez. After COVID, don't get me started with these people that buy COVID dogs, and now they're giving them up. So the rescues are overrun with COVID dogs, so we have to help them out.
And plus, economy's tough. People just have a tough time giving money, right?
Yeah.
So
It's quite true.
So, Dad, this comes from Facebook. It comes from LD McNabb, and it says, I just wanted to let him know that my father fought him in the San Francisco Cow Palace. Do you know who's he talking about?
He said, talking about Larry McNabb, and boy, was he tough. I remember when I first went to Spokane, and the guy gave me tight gloves. So right away, I know I'm in trouble because I didn't want to say anything to the trainer. In the first day there, he gives me tight gloves and everything. He thought he was doing me a favor, giving me new gloves. So anyhow, we drive. I guess we must have flown to San Fran, and we went in the Cow Palace, and they had a big sign. Honestly, they had a sign. It had to be 60 feet long. Larry McNabb, heavyweight champion of the WHL. Oh, geez. I know he's looking for trouble. He's looking for me. I don't know. Anyhow, I start the game, and I really don't want to fight. I'm tired, but if you have to go, you have to go. And sure enough, we went. The funny thing is, the linesman jumped on my back. I don't know. He was trying to break it up, and he was doing his best. And he was loose, and he had his right hand loose again. And he hit me, and I said, geez, I better put my head down close to the ice, or I won't be nothing left of me. So I put my head down right close to the ice, and he kept hitting me on top of the head. And he was just corking me. You can't believe I can still feel it. And I broke it up, and I was really dizzy, I was really, from being hit so many times on top of the head. Boy, I often think if my head had been up about 6 inches, he could have got underneath there. Anyhow, I taught him a lesson. I broke his hand. He broke his hand on my head. So he was looking at the trainer, and the trainer was looking at him. Boy, I could have got him. But I was still dizzy. I use that as an excuse. My head rang for about a week afterward, and he was a big, tough defenseman. He'd be earning about $5 million now. My head hurt so much, honest to God, my head hurt so much on top. I couldn't comb my hair. I used to have a lot of hair back then. I couldn't comb my hair for a week.
Okay, this question comes from Facebook. I am a big Bears fan, and can you tell me about Frank Mathers?
Frank Mathers. I remember Skippy Teal and I, we both played for Barrie Flyers, and we won the Memorial Cup, and we went down there and we saw Frank Mathers. Oh, this guy can't make the National Hockey League. Holy damn. He was about 6'1". He was about 190 pounds, and was he good? He was unbelievable. But Tim, you got some information that one of the reasons why he didn't make it, well, the Leafs were down on him.
You said, I said to him, I said, if he was that good, why was he not in?
And I told you why.
And he eventually made it to the Hockey Hall of Fame. They have him in as a builder, but they just said he was so good that they wanted to put him in. But you said, Dad, there's something like he says he got into bad books with the Leafs. So I looked into it, and he wanted to take some time off to go to school to be a dentist.
And you didn't do that in those days, and you did not take time off. Do anything they wanted to keep you dumb and stupid, and that's what most hockey players were back in those days. And you know what? If you tried to get an education, they frowned on it. They really did. And he got in the bad books. But that's why they have the Players Association now.
Well, because it's interesting, because you and I and Cindy were talking, and I bet you most people don't realize this before the Players Association and everything, is that so the Leafs would have owned his rights forever. If they wanted to bury him in the minors, he either had to play in the minors or quit. And if he came back after he quit, he would still be owned by the Leafs. Like today, after 4 years or 5 years with the team or 3 years, you can go to free agency.
2, I think.
Yeah, it's free agency. And but back then, they owned you forever.
They owned you forever. If you signed a B form or a C form.
So Boston had you, Dad. They signed you, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you went to Toronto. So they just sold your rights to Toronto, then Toronto owned you forever?
Well, if you signed a B form, you had to go to their training camp and you had to try out for them.
Yeah.
That was it. And if you signed a C form, that was it. It was a lifer. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's what happened. It looked like, as they say to Frank Mathers, was that the Leafs owned him, and even though he won Calder Cups and he won Stanley Cup or Calder Cups and led the league I think he retired, he led defensemen in points and
he was
assists
unbelievable
and everything.
6 foot, about 6 foot, eh?
Yeah, and they didn't, and they just left him there because they didn't like him because he wanted to go to school.
For start off in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then they switched them over.
So the interesting thing too, Dad, was you're saying that, and we're looking into it, that he became a player coach.
He was a player coach. There was only one other player coach I remember was Steve Kravchuk in Rochester, and it was easy. It was easy.
Like now they have how many 4 behind a bench, and they got guys upstairs talking to. How could you coach while you're on the ice?
Well,
playing?
you just roll the lines.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to. Didn't have as many players.
During practice, did the player coach during practice?
I don't remember
he just
teaching us anything. Just watch him. And
just watch him do what he's doing.
Just watch Frank Mathers.
So the interesting thing, Dad, looking at because you hear about Frank Mathers being the coach. First of all, he played in the CFL. And he was a good player in the CFL.
Yeah, well, he could play any sports. You see, he was clever.
Yeah. So when he retired in 1962, he had the most assists and most posts by an AHL defenseman, and he won 8 Calder Cups. 8 Calder Cups. I
remember he called Rochester a Halloween. If you want to go to a Halloween, he was really mad. We beat up his players and everything like that.
So he won 2 in Pittsburgh when he played for the Pittsburgh Hornets. He won 2 as a player coach at Hershey, and then one more as just a regular coach.
He was a clever guy, and he could play defense like nobody else.
Okay, Dad, this is from Ian Lifchus from Facebook. And can you tell me your memories of Tim Horton? Because his grandkids think that Tim Hortons was a donut entrepreneur. And
I knew that was going to happen.
I always amazes me going into Tim Hortons all the time and how many of them don't even have a picture of Tim Horton in it with his Leaf uniform.
Well, I think that his wife, when she sold it, that she had it. I don't know it, but I think she had it that they couldn't have pictures of him.
I bet you he'd like that, though.
He'd like that.
He'd like that.
Well, he was a funny guy.
Some of them do have.
He was the strongest guy I ever saw.
So, Dad, you knew him when you went to training camp with him, right?
I was at training camp. We were in the sweatshop, and I used to go walk by their training camp site, and they had a big, beautiful room, and all our underwear was all washed every night. Ours is still wet. Honestly, we were right next to the boiler room, right next to the boiler room, and so it'd never dry out. I was standing outside the Express Hotel, and that was the name of the hotel, in Peterborough, Ontario. And I was standing with Mike Walton, who played with me the year before, and Jimmy Pappin. Anyhow, there was one. Oh, Eddie Shack was standing outside. So he drove up, and he says, I just want to. When I drive, all I want is a donut and a coffee. He says, I think it'd be great, don't you think?
Because he failed at a hamburger place, right?
He'd already failed a couple of places, and the guys made fun of him. You'd be like one of those diners with the big hats, and they were making fun of him. And he said, no, I'd just like to go in and get a donut and
a coffee. Because he used to drive trucks for dump trucks in the summer.
Yeah, it's cement
trucks. Can you imagine that? That's Tim Hortons.
Everybody had to work because
even in the NHL, players had to work during the summer.
Yeah, they had to work.
I only thought that was minor leaguers.
No. Yeah, they had to work.
Well, I think he worked with Conn Smythe, had a construction company. He drove cement trucks or something.
Yeah, he drove cement trucks.
That is amazing. So if there's any person that's working, a trucker would know, I just want a coffee and a donut.
And everybody was making fun of him and everything like that. Little did they know that he would turn into, how many?
They're all over the world now, too.
Yeah, they're over in China now.
Yeah, my wife was over there a few years ago, and I think I said it before. It was more Canadian than any Canadian here. They had maple leafs and moose. The doors were hockey sticks and all that. And they were busy. She says they were really busy when like that.
Can I just say one thing? I wish that the management of Tim Hortons now would try to remember what Mr. Horton wanted originally. It was just a quick donut, a quick coffee, and a donut. You go into Tim Hortons now, and it always never fails. Someone in front of me, they're ordering the Last Supper, and you're, because they've expanded their menu, and all I want is a coffee, right?
Remember when Tim Horton when he first started out, all he wanted was a donut and a coffee, and he could get on his way.
Okay, Dad, from Facebook, Todd Stataford says, I would like to know, what is Mr. Cherry's favorite automobile he ever owned?
And there's a lot of them.
They're beauty cars, too. I remember the very first car I had was a 55 Ford Custom, and it was light blue, with light blue inside. And then I had a 60... Pontiac, boy, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. 1960. In fact, Cindy, we drove all the way out to Spokane in that car. I never even thought of breaking down or anything at all. And then I got a 64 Pontiac. And Pontiac that year, a 64 Pontiac Parisienne, was the only year that I remember that outsold Chevrolet. So then I had I forget but anyhow, I know I had a big, beautiful Oldsmobile. It was just gorgeous. My favorite car of all time was a Lincoln Mark VI two-door, and two-door is very important. And I'll tell you the story behind it.
But most of all your cars were two-door, Dad.
Yeah,
they were all good-looking cars for two. Very impractical for a family car. But they were all two doors.
I wouldn't let you people have ice cream in them and stuff like that. They were perfect when I left them.
So what I remember about that car was that you had a Cadillac that you weren't too crazy about.
No, I wasn't.
Leave it. So you went down to White Oaks Lincoln in Mississauga, and you went to the guy, and your star was rising in Hockey Night in Canada at the time, and you said, I wanted to sell the car. You wanted to sell the
Black Caddy.
The Black Caddy. So they said, well, we'll tell you what, we'll give you a Lincoln Mark VI. It was 83, was it?
Yeah.
And said, you can drive that around and all that, and then, next year we'll give you a new car. So
no, they didn't say that.
No, they didn't. It's just like they wanted you to drive around. So you fell in love with that car.
Oh, I fell in love with it.
So they called you up and said, well, Don, we want that car back because they're probably going to sell it used or whatever.
Yeah.
And you said, no, I'm not giving it back.
I said, no, I love this car. They said, no, Don, this is how it works. We give you a car, we let you drive it around, and we sell it as a used car. I said, I don't want the car. And they said, well, that's the way it works. And I said, well, I don't want it. I'm going to buy this one here. So I ended up buying a car, and I could have got the guy said, wait a minute, we're giving you insurance free. We're anything you want fixed is free, but you want the.
Mom wasn't happy. She's
No.
like, well, wait a minute. We couldn't get a new. First of all, you didn't get any money for the Cadillac.
That's right.
And now they're charging you for the car, and we're not getting a new car. We're getting that car. Yeah. So mom wasn't happy. But
Well-
can I tell one story about that car? I know
Yeah.
you're not going to be happy, but I got to tell this one story. Sometimes it had a hard time starting. And so we went to a game to watch a minor hockey game at night, and it was kind of in the spring, and we get there and it was raining, like it really was raining. So we get out and this one goalie, we're watching the game, and the one goalie I think from Markham just got blasted. He got like 10 goals scored on him. So we go. So Dad and I you were kind of late because you were signing some autographs and stuff like that. So we go out to the car. And it's dead.
And I said, look at I remember saying, hey, Tim, I hate to say you're wrong, but you're wrong. It was the second. I love the car so much, I bought a second car, a black one. And you know whose car it was?
Who?
Harold Ballard. Harold Ballard and I had it painted all black. Anyhow, I said, look at that car. Isn't that beautiful car? That's the most gorgeous car.
Yeah.
We're walking.
And then click.
And it didn't start.
So it's the middle of the night, like because the game started at 9, but it started late 9:30. The poor goalie gets there's 10 goals, so the game goes long, and there's only one other car in the parking lot. We're at the Herb Carnegie rink down, so, and it's the goalie.
No.
So we're trying to get it started, and the guy comes over and says, is everything okay? And we tried to jump it, but it wouldn't jump.
Yeah.
So I called CAA. And so the guy says, okay, we'll be there in like 10 minutes. So they said, well, come sit in our car. So they had like a minivan. So we're sitting there trying to make small talk, and you want to say a tough game, that.
Oh, boy.
And you're sitting there, we're trying to make small talk, avoiding the fact that the goalie got blasted for a whole bunch of goals and everything like that. So we're sitting in there, and finally, after about 40 minutes, the guy comes, right? The CAA guy. So
And
he opens the door, right? And he pops the hood up, and he goes, everything seems to be okay. So he goes in and he didn't slam the door, he closed the door, and it started right up.
I think the car knew that I was talking about how beautiful it was and everything, and it made me taught me a lesson. I kept my mouth shut after that, but I love those 1983 Mark VI 2-door, and I just love them.